And there he is, our Canucks reporter, RinkWide Vancouver's Jeff Paterson from Rogers Arena, where he took in the proceedings this morning. How are you?
I'm good, guys. And the Carolina Hurricanes are in town. You knew that by virtue of the schedule, but how they got into town is a little bit different. I don't know if you've seen the issues they had with their airplane after the game in Seattle on Saturday night. They had to bus to Vancouver, which doesn't happen very often in the National Hockey League. And Murph telling a great story, I guess, talking to Brent Burns. Usually they would fuel up with food on the airplane, quick flight. Obviously, that wasn't an issue. Hockey players have to eat after a game. The Hurricanes did the drive-through McDonald's bit, but apparently the McDonald's was closed by the time they had ordered off the app. Brent Burns had to hitch a ride with a random stranger in a car to go through the drive-through to collect the team's order. And as Murph says, imagine Brent Burns, of all people, knocking on your car window, asking for a ride well after midnight on a Saturday night in rural Washington State. Anyways, apparently it all worked out to plan. They got their burgers and whatever else they got. They got here, and they will play tonight against the Vancouver Canucks.
Well, that is unhealthy nourishment for them. The Canucks should have an easy 2 points here tonight. Nathan McKinnon cannot believe they chose McDonald's.
Hopefully he had his teeth in so the guy knocking on his door wasn't too frightened.
That's right.
Can I come in there with it?
All right, let's get to it. Well, Jeff, we'll start with our poll question. Arshdeep Baines, what do you think? You got a chance to be a regular for the Canucks this season?
He does. I think we have to be careful here. The Dakota Joshua getting closer every day. And Rick Tocchet said he wouldn't play on Wednesday, but beyond that, said out on the road trip, yeah, quite possibly. Something's got to give, not just with the lineup, but the roster, obviously, to activate Dakota Joshua. And Arshdeep Baines will remain the easy decision because he doesn't require waivers, as we've seen here over the weekend and in recent days when they've had time off and they've done the paper transactions down and back. So I guess the question becomes, how much ground can Arshdeep cover here to become a regular and really plant his flag in this lineup? Just because they can send him to Abbotsford, are they going to weaken this team if they feel he's one of their best 12 forwards? And that's a decision that the organization's going to have to make, and Arshdeep's going to have to continue to up his game. Incredible moment here the other night, guys. It was just so cool to be in the building, to witness it all. In a stunning turn of events with the 3 goals in 65 seconds and then 4 goals in a total of 5 minutes. But it is just 1 goal, his first NHL point, right? And up until that moment, I had been among those that were saying, like, it's a great story, but how much mileage can we get out of the local boy? Makes the team he grew up watching. He's got to earn his place in this lineup. So we can't get ahead of ourselves, but there are signs there that he's doing all the things that Rick Tocchet has wanted. He's brought speed, some tenacity, and we know that he's been a finisher at other levels, and so it was great to see him score here on Saturday night. I think that's going to be the challenge, obviously, is, can he do enough in the minds of the organization that they may have to place Nils Aman on waivers? That's sort of the option, I think. I mean, when you look at what would have to happen to get Dakota Joshua into this lineup, something's going to have to give. So I think there's still a fair bit of ground to cover for Arshdeep, but he's taking steps, leaps and bounds to cover a fair bit of that ground with his performance here in the short term. But I'm going to vote no, unfortunately, for him on the poll question. Just in terms of a regular, like an every night guy. I'm not sure that he's there just yet.
Well, there's too many other guys that are hungry too, right? There's just a lot of guys vying for jobs right now,
including Daniel Sprong, who drew heavy praise from the head coach after Saturday. Jeff, a word or two about him and his immediate future here.
Yeah, look, I'm sure it's not the way he drew it up, being a healthy scratch 3 of the first 6 games, but he got his opportunity the other night, and I don't think it was the former team thing. There's too many former teams for Daniel Sprong, so I don't think that was the motivation necessarily. But you could see, the speed was evident, but just things were happening around him and the puck. Good things were happening. It's such a contrast between a guy like Daniel Sprong and a player like Nils Aman, where almost nothing happens around Nils Aman when he's out there. And that's what he brings to this mix, is this ability just to defend and sort of quiet things down. Obviously, there's upside with Daniel Sprong. This guy has scored 20-plus goals in the National Hockey League in a season. He's got this shot that we've talked about since training camp that is different than others. It's a differentiator for him. And Rick Tocchet has praised him not just for his performance the other night, but for the mature way that he's handled sort of this early season bumpy road of not being an everyday guy. And I know he talked the other night about, like, forget about game 6 and 7. By the time game 80 rolls around, that's where I want to be, make sure that I've staked my claim to a spot in the lineup, and we won't remember what happened in the first 3 weeks of the season. So it sounds like a pretty professional approach from a guy like Daniel Sprong. But I just liked a lot of what I saw the other night. And, if he can continue to do that, to cause defensemen fits in their own zone, to be able to use the speed to create some space for himself, and then we know that he's got the skill level to create offensively. So, I think for Sprong, that was a nice opportunity. They're going to keep him in the lineup, same 12 forwards tonight. There may be a change on defense. If it is, it's most likely Juleson in and Desharnais coming out, but they're not tampering with a 12-man forward group that you guys, like, how often have we seen all four forward lines score in the same period? Like, I've seen all four score over the course of a game, but all four in a 6-minute span, like, that's something I'm not sure that I have seen very often in my time covering the Vancouver Canucks.
Didn't allow them to come up for air either. When every line coming over the boards does that, I mean, there's nowhere for anybody to hide. And that's because that other guy that's been vying for a spot in the line, this number 40, he came to play. What do you think of what he brought to the table? And is it over? Is the breakthrough there for Elias Pettersson?
I can't get there just yet.
You're not ready.
But again, steps in the right direction. We're still waiting for that big explosive night offensively where he's all over the score sheet. This was his first goal of the season. Nice play. Tyler Myers, Connor Garland, who's just been terrific since day one. Garland gets the puck to Petey, and look, he makes no mistake, and that's what you want to see, is that shot with a little velocity on it, picked his spot on the far side, and in. And it has to be a relief for him, just with all the noise in the market for the last little while. But in the end, it's just one goal and 1 point for Elias Pettersson. So it's something to build on, but it really was something for the team to build on because, man, did they stack those goals in a hurry. The next shift, it's Kiefer Sherwood, and then JT Miller. He got a little bit of a bounce, but stuck with it. And, all of a sudden it goes from 2-0 down to a 3-2 lead, and there was really no looking back there. So I like what I see. Again, Garland is the driver on that line right now, and so it's a little bit of a different position, if you will, for Elias Pettersson, that he's not the guy that's expected to be making all the plays, to be the creator. I think at some point he's going to have to get back to being that for the Vancouver Canucks. But right now, Garland's doing most of the heavy lifting, Nils Höglander chipping in, and they're finding Pettersson, like that goal in Philly that, same sort of deal where Garland got the puck to Pettersson wide open in the slot, could have shot, but made the right play to slip it over to Höglander for the tap in. Here this time, Petey elected to shoot the puck, and good things happened. So, again, it's something for him to continue to build on. Points in 3 straight games now. That's what you want to see. But it wasn't a huge, loud night for Elias Pettersson individually. It was just a big, loud second period for the collective of the Vancouver Canucks.
Jeff, let's deal with DeBrusk here then. At what point would you get worried about DeBrusk, who is still sitting on no goals?
Yeah, I had a chance to talk to him pregame on Saturday, and he tried to laugh it off. He's a likable guy, big personality, but he knows he was brought here to score goals, and we're 7 games in, and hasn't happened for him yet. I mean, he tried to joke a little bit that maybe I used up too many in the preseason, and he did score 3 there, including an overtime winner out in Abbotsford. So he has put pucks in the net. He hasn't forgotten where the net is or how to use that stick. And he does have 4 points in 7 games, right? 45-point pace. And at the end of the season, I think that's kind of the neighborhood you would expect. But you were thinking it was going to be 25 goals and 20 assists or 25 assists. So, he's got to get on his horse. He knows it. But in saying all the things that he said the other day, kind of reading between the lines and forming my own conclusion, he was quick to point out the fact that he has played with pretty much everybody on this team already 7 games in, and he said it is tough to find some chemistry, and he hasn't necessarily found his slot. But started the year with Pettersson, now he's playing with JT Miller. He had the one game where he had dropped down onto the third line. He's not a third line guy. He is one of their best wingers, even if the goals aren't there yet. He's got to play in the top 6. But it's just it's looked and felt clunky. There hasn't been that rhythm for him, hasn't found his groove, hasn't shot the puck much, just 11 shots in the 7 games. So, in order to score goals, you do have to shoot the puck at some point here. And I know Brock Besser wants the puck on the other side, and he shoots a lot. So maybe there's some of that as well. But whatever the case, they're winning hockey games, right? And I think that alleviates a fair bit of the pressure. Conversation and the noise would be a lot louder. Probably benefited from JT and Elias Pettersson getting into it at practice last week. That dominated the headlines as well. This market can turn on guys in a hurry. We know that. I don't think we're anywhere close to that with Jake DeBrusk, but at the end of the day, he was paid a lot of money. They committed to him. He is going to have to finish. And through it all, the fact that they have won 4 in a row and have one regulation loss and this high prize free agent hasn't been one of their big offensive contributors. In some ways you can spin that as a positive. He will score goals. Jake DeBrusk will score goals for the Vancouver Canucks. It will happen. I don't think that's a newsflash to anybody, but yeah, to make that happen, he's going to have to dig in, to use Rick Tocchet's phrase, and just do a little bit more for this hockey club.
What's the goaltending plan? I don't think Lankinen is going to be tired, but do they need to get Artur Silovs in? Do you care if you're Rick Tocchet because you're getting wins? What do you think they're thinking there?
I think a lot of this is schedule dictated, that it's a full team day off yesterday, and so Lankinen's getting his rest here.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming back with him. It'll be his 5th straight start. He's given up 3 in each of the last 2. Now, I didn't really have any problems with the goals themselves that got in against Pittsburgh, but I thought maybe the door was open to going back to Artur Silovs for this one. That said, Carolina, 2nd in the National Hockey League in shots per game, and 1st in the National Hockey League in the fewest shots that they allow. I mean, they love to have the puck, and when they've got it, they shoot from everywhere. I'm not sure that necessarily plays into the hands of Artur Silovs, given some of his issues that he's had early in the season, although he was pretty good in Tampa, certainly in the first period in his last start. But so it's not going to happen tonight. But then you got New Jersey, and we know that when Jersey's trucking along, they can score a bunch. And so that's not going to be an easy game. Can they ride Lankinen into Saturday and get Silovs a start in San Jose against the Sharks at the start of the road trip? I wonder if that is sort of the master plan in all of this. Rick Tocchet did say that, look, they have to get Silovs in here. They're just riding the hot hand right now. That's sort of where the decision is coming from. But I do wonder if Lankinen performs well here and they get another win and make it 5 straight victories against Carolina, do you ride them out again on Wednesday night and then bunch of days off, and maybe then you see Artie on Saturday in San Jose?
All possible.
All of it possible, for sure. Lastly, Jeff, is Brandstrom even in danger of hitting these waiver thresholds, or is he just going to be a regular Vancouver Canuck the rest of the way?
Yeah, Tocchet was talking him up again this morning, pointed to a play the other night where Brandstrom went back for a puck, and Tocchet said standing behind the bench kind of figured he would just wheel behind his own net and sort of take his time and survey, and instead, a quick turn and a quick up ice to Kiefer Sherwood and generated a scoring chance off the rush. And Tocchet was like, that's the kind of thing that, we need from this guy. So Derek Forbort is back. The Canucks announcing now, the news had been out there, but it hadn't really been made public by the organization. But Derek's dad, Keith, passing away from colon cancer, far too soon of an age. So the personal leave is over. Forbort's back. Won't play tonight. But now you start to get some of these questions that we talked about up front. And incredible decisions. I wrote about this at Canucks Army on Sunday. Think back to the final years of Willie D and early Travis Green. There were a lot of nights where the Vancouver Canucks didn't ice a lineup that had 18 legitimate National Hockey League players. They just didn't.
Right.
And now the depth of this group has put the coach in an enviable position, but a tough one, to make decisions on guys that should be playing. And so I would think that Forbort's going to get back in there, but Brandstrom's a left side guy as well. I asked Rick on Friday out at UBC about Brandstrom playing the right side, and Tocchet said, yes, they have investigated. They've looked at the analytics and they check out there, and that is a possibility, was his word. So might we see a Forbort and Brandstrom pairing at some point here in short order? And I think the answer is yes. I think you want to keep Brandstrom in there, but I think they do want to get Forbort back in as well for what he brings in terms of some heavy lifting on the penalty kill. But Brandstrom even got penalty killing time the other night against Pittsburgh. So this guy really has done an incredible job. The Canucks have won every game that he has played, not all on his back or on his watch, but he's certainly pulling the rope in the right direction here. So, yeah, tough decisions are coming. Obviously, that's not great news for guys like Vincent Desharnais and Noah Juleson, but that is life on the fringes of the National Hockey League on a roster that is chock full of National Hockey League caliber guys. And so we'll see where it goes. they're healthy too, right? Like, at some point injuries could dictate some decisions on the part of the coaching staff. But in the short term here, I do think they're going to take a look at Erik Brannstrom over on the right side just to see what he looks like there and how he plays so that he could remain in this lineup long term.
So the calculus on which side he plays on should really just come down to this question then, Jeff. On their respective sides, because they're on different sides, who's better, Forbort or Desharnais? Do you have a flavor for either of them in a Canucks uniform yet?
I think you probably default to the veteran guy that's been there and done it a lot longer in Forbort, and I do think one of the reasons they picked him up was his penalty killing utility. I mean, led Boston or was among the Bruins' leaders in ice time on the penalty kill. A bit of a throwback, just old school. Puck is sometimes secondary with Derek Forbort. He knows his job is to clear the front of the net. And if you're going to have Brannstrom and Quinn Hughes in the lineup together, we know how much Rick Tocchet values the size and the Redwoods back there on defense. And so, not that Desharnais doesn't bring that element as well, but I just think Forbort hasn't lost his spot in the lineup because of poor play or in injury. This was believe as a guy can take. And so I do think he'll get back in there maybe as early as Wednesday. Although if they continue to win here, maybe he has to wait a little bit longer. Whatever the case, I would think that Forbort's ahead of Desharnais on the depth chart just in terms of the guys that they think are everyday players in the National Hockey League. And I think they still want to continue to work on Desharnais, and they signed him to a couple of year deal. So they've looked at him as a project. They think there's upside there. But in the short term, I do think if I'm slotting their defenseman, I probably have Forbort ahead of Desharnais.
Wow. Marvelous stuff, Jeff. Thank you for this. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll be watching RinkWide Vancouver. Remember, moments after the final horn, you can catch Jeff and the post-game show, and we'll catch up with you on Friday.
All right. Sounds good, guys. Thanks.